В своей гибридной войне против Украины Россия часто использует...
Russia uses religion as a weapon and a destabilizing factor for Ukrainian society. And now, when a scandal broke out between the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, affiliated with the Moscow Patriarchate, and the Ukrainian Ministry of Culture, the clergy said that after the very first services of the independent Orthodox Church of Ukraine, the crosses on the churches of the Kyiv Monastery of the Caves turned black. We arrived at the scene to find out if such allegations were true.
Відносно хрестів, маються на увазі хрести.
With regard to crosses, we mean crosses that were covered with gilding back in the 1960s. And these crosses have been dim for decades. Indeed, the problem is that huge funds should be spent on making the National Kyiv-Pechersk Historical and Cultural Reserve and the sites look normal. Even the darkening of certain objects over time can in no way be some kind of a mystical sign. These are prejudices. A faithful man wouldn't say that.
National Kyiv-Pechersk Historical and Cultural Reserve, the most important cult complex, which is the size of half the Vatican, is owned by the state. With Ukraine regaining independence in 1991, the Ministry of Culture leased both parts of the reserve to the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate, the upper, the museum one, and the lower, the temple one. Since 2018, relations between the Moscow Patriarchate Church, which is de facto controlled by the Russian Church, and the Ukrainian state began to deteriorate. Now, when the Ministry of Culture asks the Moscow Patriarchate to leave the Lavra, they refuse to do so. When asked whether such protection includes a violent confrontation with law enforcement officers, the metropolitans of the UOC are silent, like if God will help us, but they indicate that they have power generators and supplies of food and water, and the rector, Metropolitan Paul, even threatens that God's punishment will befall their opponents for evicting them from the reserve. In their speeches, the priests compare the current Ukrainian government with the Bolsheviks and declare that historically, the Lavra allegedly belongs to them. Historians call this outright manipulation. Lavra as a temple complex was built with the money of Ukrainians, starting from the time of Kievan Rus. And according to tradition, it was the legitimate Metropolitan of Kyiv who was its rector. And now, both in terms of the number of parishes and the presence of a church document, a Thomas, it is the independent Orthodox Church of Ukraine that has more legitimacy in this matter.
Поэтому нужно отметить, что Лавра всегда принадлежала.
Therefore, it should be noted that the Lavra always belonged to the throne of the Kyiv Metropolitan, who, according to tradition, was already the rector of the monastery. Therefore, today, when we say that His Beatitude Epiphanius heads the Orthodox Church in Ukraine, he is, according to the old tradition, in fact the person who also heads the Kyiv Monastery of the Caves, according to the tradition of our Ukrainian Church.
At the same time, it is also impossible to rush the issue of transferring the monastery. This is important primarily for the protection of state property, and the crosses, icons and other relics are also the state property of Ukraine. Thanks to the observance of a clear procedure, the previous time when the Moscow Patriarchate led the upper part of the Lavra, no violations were revealed and state property remained in its place.
Поэтому и нужно максимально открытый процесс.
Therefore, we need the most open process, the most open understanding of the basis on which this happens. Well, and accordingly, as it was with other premises of the Kyiv Monastery of the Caves, an appropriate commission was created, which conducted an inventory, and it will also report what was lost, what relics are missing, or if nothing is missing. Therefore, here it is necessary to approach this all very carefully, because it is still a matter of religion and a person's inner perception of God.
The only problem is that neither the state nor the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate has yet published the document of the lease agreement. This would have greatly simplified the legal process for both sides of the conflict. Reported by Dana Kolesnik, Danilo Kobza, Serhiy Savchuk, UATV News.